Hey, what's up guys? Scott here, back with another video. Today I'll be doing my review of the Ahsoka series, which just finished a couple nights ago this week. So yeah, I got my notes and kind of went over my thoughts. Okay, I think I'm ready to do this. Anyway, okay, so before I get into the actual review part, and I think a lot of people that have reviewed the show have missed this key thing. First of all, it's very important, and this is, like I said, this is key. You have to remember that this show is one installment of an ongoing story. And what I mean by that is, you have the original trilogy, right? New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and then Return of the Jedi. This is, this is one ongoing installment of the Mandoverse, which is a story within the Star Wars universe, right? So this is one installment of an ongoing story that is the Mandoverse. So that's how you have to, I think that's how you have to look at it to really understand it best. That's the best way to look at it. Because if you don't look at it that way, I think you really miss a lot of the points of it, or you won't get as much out of it. If you strictly look at it as a standalone story, and which there's been those, right? You had like Rogue One and primarily Rogue One, or the occasional one-off story, which those were like self-contained, one season or one episode things or one movie things. But this is an installment of an ongoing story, so you have to look at it that way to get the most out of it. And I think a lot of people that have reviewed this show have missed that key point. So that's how I'm looking at it. Is like this is just one installment of the ongoing story of the Mandoverse, which will culminate in the finale later. But this is not the finale of it. There's more story after this coming. So that's key to remember. Anyway, with that aside, let's get into the actual review. So first off, positives. I like the characters and I like the actors portraying the characters. I thought Rosario Dawson, amazing as live action Ahsoka. She's just an awesome actress to begin with. So to see her in such an iconic role in Star Wars, amazing. By the way, I'm not going to go into it here, but go and research how she got the part, and it's pretty cool. But Rosario Dawson, of course, phenomenal. Natasha Liu Bordizzo as Sabine Wren, very good casting. Overall, I really felt like they did a good job translating the characters from animation and Rebels and Clone Wars to live action. Obviously, going to be an adjustment, but I think overall they did a good job. The writers and the actors did a good job bringing those characters over to live action. I thought Natasha Liu Bordizzo did good as live action Sabine Wren. Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Hera, fantastic as live action Hera Syndulla. And I really hope all these. And I'm sure they will, but to see these actors continue into the Mandoverse going forward is going to be cool. I think they really shined here. So, and those three specifically, Ahsoka, Sabine, and Hera, all were translated very well. And the writing and acting for all of them I thought was pretty spot on. So, I like the characters and the actors. Our three leads. And then I'm just gonna say this is a spoiler warning. So if you haven't seen Ahsoka, I'm gonna go into some spoilers. And I wanted to say that before saying I like the live action Ezra Bridger we get. I think Iman Esfandi is the actor's name that portrays live action Ezra. He did awesome for what little we got of Ezra, and Lars Mikkelsen is live action Thrawn, and he is one of the few characters that translated over directly because he voiced Thrawn in Star Wars Rebels. So to see him translated, he did awesome as the live action Thrawn. And I thought Iman Esfandi did awesome as live action Ezra for what little we got of Thrawn and Ezra. And we'll get into that when I get to the negatives. But acting wise, all these characters translated from animation to live action, great. So there's that. And my next positive, the action and fight sequences when we got them, very well choreographed. My favorite fight I think was the final fight between Ahsoka and Morgan Elsbeth. When Morgan Elsbeth gets the blade of Talzin. That fight, I think, was my favorite. It was really well choreographed. You got to see a lightsaber versus kind of a magical sword. Oh, it was really cool. And they had fought before in Mando Season 2, so this is kind of a good rematch to tie up that. And spoilers, Morgan Elsbeth dies, and I thought that was a good way to kind of give some finality to the season. This did feel like a season finale, but it was definitely not a Mandoverse finale. But this is a good season finale in that regard. So, but Morgan dies, and I thought that fight was really well done. In my opinion, probably and there were some really good fights throughout the series too. So there's that. Action fight choreography overall really good. And then so now I'm gonna get the spoilers for the ending. So I'll tell you what. Let me do my negatives first. Okay. So there's a few negatives. One is, and other people have said this too, and I agree. There's two major plot points introduced pretty much at the beginning of the season, or pretty early on in the season, that are not resolved by the end of the season. Now, I'm not saying that you have to wrap up those stories right away. Those stories can continue, but there's two major lingering questions we're left with by the end of the season. One, what is Thrawn in this cargo that he's loading to bring back to the main galaxy? What is that cargo? It never answers that. That he's loading all this cargo onto his Star Destroyer, the Chimera, to come back. We never find out what that cargo is. And that was teased throughout the season. What is he bringing back? We never find out. And so that was definitely one that should have been answered. And then the second thing is something was calling Baylan and Shin to this planet, Peridia, where Thrawn had been banished to. Thrawn and Ezra had disappeared to. So he kept saying, something calls me here. We never find out what that thing is. Those two questions, even though it didn't have to wrap up those stories, those two questions should have been answered this season, in my opinion. You don't set up something and not answer it by the end of the season. So, that was one of my negatives. Those two major questions left unanswered. And then another negative, the story, in my opinion, now once it got going, it was really good. But to me, in my opinion, the story started off really slow. It took way too long, over half the season, to get to Thrawn and Ezra and all that. We should have been in Thrawn by episode 3 or 4 instead of episode 6. That way, you could have the first half of the season 1 through 4 being getting to him, then have the last half be the fight with him, right? It took way too long to get to Thrawn and that planet and what's going on there. And there was I feel like there was a lot of filler stuff that could have been easily trimmed down. Now that might sound like a nitpick, but you got pacing is a big thing when doing shows and film. You got to have good pacing, and this show did suffer from quite a bit of bad pacing, in my opinion. So that definitely is a negative. The pacing could have been a lot better. I thought the writing at times was very clunky. Specific example, I won't really go into specifics, but let's just say the writing is made it where the heroes would do stupid things or would not do certain things, and that allowed the things to stretch out. So I know that sometimes writing has to be that way to tell the story, but in this case, it was just outright stupidity on the New Republic's part to not do certain things that could have easily prevented all this from happening. But, I understand they got to set things up. So sometimes you have to write certain things for certain things to happen. I get it, but it's still frustrating. The writing was really clunky at times and could have been a lot better. Which again adds, I think, to the pacing issue. Sometimes bad writing equals bad pacing, which I think in this case was the case. So, that's pretty much my only negatives, that the pacing was kind of bad sometimes and that the writing was really clunky. But the ending, I want to talk about the ending. So the endings, spoiler alert, Thrawn escapes back to our galaxy, or back to the main galaxy, but Ahsoka and Sabine are left behind. But Ezra's able to get back home to the main galaxy. So I like the ending. This is how Star Wars is supposed to end. Like in stuff like Empire Strikes Back. This is basically kind of like Empire Strikes Back. It ends it ends kind of on a sad downer note with the bad guys getting back, but it also ends on a hopeful note because Ezra was able to get back too. So it also ends on a hopeful note. I like that a lot. Like, it ends on just enough hopeful note that you're satisfied. So yes, overall I give the series a 7 out of 10. That's my final score. Really good action. Like the characters. Good hopeful ending, and that it didn't end completely on a hopeless note. I like that. That bumped it up the score for me a lot. So I'm interested to see what happens next. So the next Mandoverse installment is Skeleton Crew, which is gonna it's the next Mandoverse installment coming. It's going to be about this group of kids that get lost in the unknown regions, and Jude Law plays a Jedi that has to help get them back home. But it's going to be connected. They've confirmed it's part of the Mandoverse, so maybe they run into Ahsoka and Sabine. And one of the villains in it is the pirate Vane, who was in Mandalorian season 3, is a side villain, but he's going to be one of the main villains here apparently. So keeping that connectivity. So I'm excited for Skeleton Crew to see what happens next. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with the movie, and yeah. So overall, I recommend Ahsoka. Not a perfect show, but a solid Mandoverse entry. And anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and peace out.